All right, the next thing we need is IQR. And your IQR is just going to be Q3 minus Q1. So I'm going to chop them again. Q1 is 10. The median is 14. And Q3 is 15, just like we had earlier. Now, to find the IQR, it's just Q3 minus Q1, which is 15 minus 10. And that's 5. So the IQR is 5. And what the IQR tells you is like how far away are the two middle halves? How big is the middle half of this data from quarter 1 to quarter 3, from the 25th to the 75th? So basically what it's asking is, what is the middle half of the data? How far away are they? 15 minus 10 is 5 from quarter 3 to quarter 1. And it's useful because if you put like a big number out here, like 1,000, it doesn't mess with this. It stays the same, right? Like the range would change, but the interquartile range would stay the same. It's looking at the inner half of the data. So it's very useful for finding how spread out the middle is. And you'll definitely be asked about it on a test as well. This is a good measurement of center, like how spread out the middle is from Q3 minus Q1. Now, fences you might have to do by hand. And what a fence is it tells you if a number is an outlier or not. A lot of times people just look at a graph and they're like, oh, that's an outlier. It's way away from all the other data. But there's a way to tell for sure if something's an outlier. Let's look at the dot plot. And I would look at this and I would kind of guess that 2 is probably an outlier because it's kind of out here by itself. And maybe 25 out here is an outlier, if I were just guessing. But there's an actual formula for it and you need to know it. So the lower fence is how you find if there's an outlier to the left. And it's Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. So let's calculate that. That is Q1 would be 10 minus 1.5 times 5, which is the IQR. And that is 10 minus 7.5, which is 2.5. So what that tells me is anything lower than 2.5 is an outlier. It's way away from the center of the data, and it's considered an outlier. So can anybody tell me in chat or by voice, are there any outliers in this data? Is anything lower than 2.5? Anybody?
2.
Yep, two's the only outlier, right? There can be multiple outliers, but 2's the only one here. Let's check and see if any of these are outliers, like 20 or 25. And the way you do that is the upper fence, which is Q3 plus. So it's taking it and adding and going further to the right and seeing if any of them are so far to the right that they'd be outliers, which is equal to 15 plus 1.5 times 5, which is 15 plus 7.5, 22.5. So do we have any outliers to the right? We have one outlier to the right, 25. So we have 2 outliers. Now the good thing is, Staplet can show you this. There's a way I can ask this question where you're going to have to know the formula though, so absolutely know these 2 formulas. Because I could ask this in a way where Staplet's not going to help you. And be wary of that, because that's going to happen. It's almost certainly going to happen.